Alright, so for this one it says quadratic functions, and it asks us to determine the vertex, intercepts, axis of symmetry, and the vertex form for the following. It gives you also a graph to sketch with. Okay, so there's two strategies here. You can do all this stuff by hand using the equations, which is how I worked it out in how I typed it for you, or you can go straight to your calculator and have the calculator do the majority of the work for you. So, I'm going to show you both, and you can make your decision as to which way you understand better, and if you want to mix and match, that's fine too. So, here we go. First thing it says is to find the vertex. Now, the vertex is basically the important point on a parabola. It's either its minimum or its maximum. So a vertex is a minimum or a max point. And that allows you to use the calculator to find the minimum or max point. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn your calculator on. You're going to go to y equals, clear out anything from before, and you're going to type in the equation. So for this equation, it's f of x equals 3x squared minus 5x minus 7. I'm going to hit graph, and I'm going to see my parabola. Now that I see the parabola, I can use the second trace feature to find the vertex. The vertex is the minimum point in this case. If the parabola was upside down, it would be the maximum. So I hit second, trace, I select the minimum option, you should see a blinking X, alright? You're going to go to the left side of your minimum, hit enter, move the blinking X to the right side, hit enter. For the guess, you're going to get as close as you can and hit enter again. Alright. And if you did that correctly, you'll have your minimum point. So for my minimum point, I have, or for my vertex, which is the minimum point, I got decimals, so it's going to be 0.833, comma, negative 9.08. Okay? So that's my vertex. Now, if I was going to do that by hand instead of using the calculator, what you would do is you'd use the formula that h equals negative b over 2a. Should look familiar to you. It's the front of the quadratic formula. So your b value is with the regular x, so it's already a negative 5, so I'm going to change it to a positive. And then 2a would be 2 times 3. That's going to give me 5/6. So it's a fraction, not the most exciting thing in the world, but I can deal. So if I did 5 divided by 6, that would give me the 0.833. For my k, I'm going to take the value of h and plug it back into f of x. So f of x was 3x squared, so I have 3 times 5/6 squared, minus, it was 5 times x, so now it's 5 times 5/6, minus 7. Excellent time to grab your calculator, and so I will do that myself. And so I'm going to get, I quit out of there, so 3 times 5/6 squared minus 5 times 5/6 minus 7. Enter. I get the decimal that I got when I traced, which makes me feel good. But if I want the fraction for that, I'm going to hit the math button and then hit enter. That allows me to get the fraction, which is negative 109 over 12. Now that I have that information, I plot the vertex point. It's going to be way down at the bottom of my graph paper. Alright, so my next task that I need to complete, I need to determine the intercepts. So, if I'm going to do my intercepts by hand, then what I'm going to do is for the y-intercept, I will let x equal 0, and I will plug 0 into the function that I'm given. So y would be equal to 3 times 0 squared minus 5 times 0 minus 7, which is negative 7. If I was going to use the calculator, I would go back to my graph, and I would trace to where x is 0, and that would give me the y-intercept as well. So I hit trace and just move the blinking x to where x is 0. Alright, now the x-intercepts are going to be a lot more trouble. I'm going to need the quadratic formula. If you look on the formula sheet that'll be provided for you, it's given. Let's write it out for us, and then we'll fill in the numbers. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I'm going to place the numbers into the equation. So my b was already negative, so it'll turn positive. I'm going to have to square it and subtract 4 times 3 times negative 7 all over 2 times 3. My denominator will be 6. And then if I get what's on the under the square root, 5 squared, 25, minus this big number here. Because of the negative and the minus, it will turn positive. And I'm going to shortcut that and just use the calculator. So 25 plus 4 times 7 times 3, oops. And I get 109. From there, if I want decimal approximations, here's what you're going to do. You're going to type 5 plus square root of 109. You're going to get that answer and divide it by 6. Then to get the other answer, you're going to do 5 minus the square root of 109, get that answer, and divide it by 6. All right. Pretty sure you know what to do from there. If you want to use the graphing calculator for the x-intercepts, you're going to go back to the graph, okay? So another word for an x-intercept is a 0, so something to keep in mind. An x-intercept and a 0 are the same thing. So I'm going to go back to second trace. I'm going to select the 0 option, and I'm going to move the blinking x to the left side of my x-intercept, hit enter. The right side, hit enter. And for the guess, I'll get as close as I can, and I'll hit enter one more time. So I'm going to get a value that says that one of my x-intercepts will be negative 0.907. For the other x-intercept, I'm going to do second trace 0 again, move the blinking x over. I got to get it on the left side, hit enter, right side, hit enter, and for my guess, hit enter. Remember that if I'm going too fast, you can hit stop, guys. So my second x-intercept is 2.573. All right, so after all of that hard work, we have our two x-intercepts. I can plot those, and I can sketch my graph. All right, let's check to see what part of the question we've answered so far. Did we determine the vertex? Yes, it was the min point. We could trace to it or use the formulas. Do we find the x and y intercepts? Yes. Axis of symmetry, didn't do that yet. So the axis of symmetry is just an invisible line down the middle of the graph. I'll use a different color so you can see it. Let's go with the orange, should be a little striking difference. And it shows you kind of where the parabola could be folded and lie on top of itself, okay? So the axis of symmetry actually shares the same thing with the vertex. It's just the h value. So for our h, we got 5/6, or if you use the decimal on the calculator, it was 0.833. All right? The other thing that it asks us for is vertex form. I'm kind of running out of space, but I'm going to make it happen. Okay, we'll just put it on a piece of loose leaf paper. All right. So, again, go to your formula sheet. The vertex equation is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. All right, so where do I fill things in? What do I leave alone? Well, x and y are a good bet to leave in the equation. H and k are the vertex, or your minimum point. So I just get those numbers from my work from before. So you can write it using the fractions, or you could write it using the decimals. All right, and then A, where does A come from? Wait a minute. A is in the quadratic formula, which means it's the same thing, guys. It's just your leading coefficient. So if you look on the function that we were given, it's going to be 3. All right. That was a lot of work, make sure you're good to go with that question, okay? And if you're not good to go, re-listen and look for anything that you're going to need me to explain to you again in a different way. All right? Let's go ahead and move on from there.